What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadow Stick dropping some hot faraga on this mic. Today we're actually going to be talking about a video called Classic Sonic Has Overstayed His Welcome. It's by another Sonic tuber, Unleash. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I highly disagree with this video. I've watched it multiple times and I feel like it's just wrong. And I really disagree with the things he says in this video. Now, I'm gonna take some of the points that Unleash makes in that video and I'll lay them out. I also want to say, don't go attack the dude, go watch the video so you can actually get an opinion for it yourself. You may agree with him completely, I just don't. But these are the points that he makes in that video. And it's that classic Sonic has been essentially too prevalent since Sonic Generations. There's not enough modern representation. Classic Sonic has been shoehorned in everywhere, and Classic Sonic is basically limiting to the franchise. And I agree with none of these things. Now, I may be oversimplifying what he said, but for the sake of making this video not, an hour long, let's use those as our basis. But before we move on, make sure you hit that like button. I'm trying to get to 30 likes on this video. And also make sure you hit the subscribe button. I want to get to 6K. But I think Unleash is essentially ignoring the precedent of Classic Sonic's return. Classic Sonic was essentially the stamp of quality at this point. Because you have to remember, even then, the Sonic franchise wasn't looked at in the most positive light. And I'm talking about when Sonic Generations released. Because these points essentially stem from Classic Sonic being too prevalent since Sonic Generations, which I think is kind of a non-argument. It's like saying Kid Goku has been too prevalent or Classic Mario has been too prevalent since Super Mario Maker. I don't know, it's just kind of a weird statement to make. This is when Sonic was, I'd say at his peak in all honesty, which is the classics. And on top of that, I think this is just a shift towards making a whole more cohesive brand. Because another point he makes is, it's not just that, Classic Sonic himself has been too prevalent, it's just classic ideas. He uses Sonic Lost World as an example, and I'll use this to actually kind of break down one of his later points in the Classic Sonic is too limiting. And that's because Sonic Lost World is modern Sonic combined with classic ideals, I guess, in somewhat of a Nintendo fashion, because that's who the audience the game was made for were Nintendo fans. It was made for the Wii U and 3DS. But really, all they were trying to do was essentially get classic fans who like the classic games but may not have cared for modern stuff back into the series. Especially since Sega is in the business of making money. They want the general audience to buy the games as well as Sonic fans. Because before this point, we hadn't really, outside of re-releases, seen classic Sonic since Sonic Blast. Because modern has just as much, if not more, representation. There's a much longer stretch of time where modern Sonic was the focus. And I just don't think that people understand that. We went 15 years without a new classic styled Sonic game. Sonic Advance and Sonic 4 don't really count. They're still modern Sonic games at their core. Even if, Sonic 4 was trying to recapture the classic fans, like I said beforehand. It just didn't do it. And then on top of that, games like Sonic Advance and Sonic Rush, while they're 2D, they do not play the same as the classics. They just don't. They're different. And I don't really like that analogy. That's like saying every 2D game is the same. They're not. And then even when we look at, I guess from 2011 to now, Sonic hasn't had a ton of games. We weren't spitting out Sonic games like the early 2000s. So there are just less games in general. Between the year 2000 and 2010, I'm pretty sure we got SA2 Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, Sonic and the Secret Ring, Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic Unleashed, and then Sonic Colors. We had at least 8 games within a 10-year time span. We've had like 3 AAA Sonic games, if you include Sonic Generations, since 2011. It's not really apples to apples, but let's just break it down. Since Gens, we've had 2 AAA Sonic games, and neither were a classic Sonic game. Sonic Lost World, yes, used a lot of classic Sonic themes, but it's not a classic Sonic game. It plays much like a modern Sonic game. We've had 1 dedicated classic game, and we've had 1 game, Sonic Forces, which was a AA budget game, to barely include classic Sonic in any meaningful capacity. It was very obvious that he was tacked on the last minute. he has very few stages. I think he has like 5 or 6 stages out of like the 30, 40, 50 stages in the game. And then on top of that, he's a massive downgrade from his previous incarnations. He wasn't even a real selling point for the game by the time the game released. The creative character was. So I just do not understand this concept of, I guess, classic Sonic, being too prevalent. Him having, or not him, but modern Sonic not having enough representation, and classic necessarily being shoehorned everywhere. It's just that the Sonic franchise has become a much more cohesive brand, and every part of the series is getting games. He even brings up sales to talk about, Sega's boasting about sales of Sonic Frontiers, but not Sonic Origins. Sonic Origins is a re-release of a bunch of classic games that have been re-released at least 5 to 8 times before this. They're just really trying to keep those games relevant. It doesn't really have to sell well. They've probably made their money back in the first 10,000 copies of the game. It was a low budget effort to keep those games fresh in people's minds. I would hope they would brag about Sonic Frontiers, the latest AAA entry into the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, the last fully priced Sonic game that released. It just makes no sense to sit here and compare two things when they're completely different products. They don't mean the same thing to Sega. Now, if we were talking about Sonic Superstars, that makes sense. Sonic Superstars is gonna be the first, in a long while, fully priced AAA 2D Sonic game. But we know we're getting more after Sonic Frontiers. We've been getting free content for that game. And they've been focusing on it a lot over the past year or so. And this just excludes the 3 Sonic Boom games we got between 2011 and 2023. So why are we even having the discussion that, classic Sonic is too prevalent? They've essentially created 2 halves of the same brand that a lot of people can enjoy. And I want to talk on the last thing he talks about really in his video, and it's classic Sonic being limiting. How? Now, don't get me wrong, they have guidelines for what they can and can't do with classic Sonic as they do with the modern Sonic brand and just the Sonic brand as a whole. But realistically, if they wanted to make a 3D classic game, they could. Classic and modern, outside of, some of the characters and stuff, are really just skins for the series. They can choose which direction they want to go artistically and place whatever they want on top of that. And that's one of the coolest things about the Sonic franchise. And I think that's something that's missing from that video. It's just this lack of understanding of what makes Sonic such a diverse and cool franchise. It's the fact that I can say classic Sonic is Sonic and modern Sonic is Sonic, and they both have as much weight. And that's good. We don't necessarily need to leave classic Sonic in the past. That's an important part of the franchise's history. And on top of that, many people, if we're just talking about the fan base, prefer that Sonic. But I digress. I don't know. Tell me how y'all guys feel in that comment section down below. I just vehemently disagree with Unleash's video because it makes no sense to me as someone who has essentially watched the Sonic franchise die and rebirth itself. At this point, classic Sonic is integral to the Sonic brand. And to say that it isn't is, I think, kind of nonsensical. But again, tell me how y'all guys feel about it in that comment section down below. As always, this has been your man Hastags. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Again, let's get to 6K. Let's get to 30 likes on this video. Remember to follow your boy on the Elon Musk app. And actually follow your boy on TikTok. I'm going to be, posting some stuff there soon. Links, as always, are down in the description below. But remember, Hot Faraga turns to Cold Blizzaga. Chill out some of my other videos. Peace, and have a good one.